Hey y'all, everyone.
Greetings and welcome to Star Trek Discovery Pod, a sometimes funny, sometimes insightful podcast covering all things new and classic Trek. I am your interim
Acting captain. Acting captain. There you go.
Clyde Haynes. And Paul, I want the podcast to go fast now.
Now, booyah. Okay, much like our current episode that we were reviewing, our captain is taking a side trip, and she'll hopefully be here in a couple of minutes. But the show must go on, so here we are.
Right, Myrriah will be with us in a little bit, but tonight we're going to be reviewing and discussing. I'm so excited! The premiere of season 2 of Strange New World, The Broken Circle, directed by Chris Fisher and written by Henry Alonzo Meyer and Akiva Goldsman. But first, a few reminders. Paul, can you remind the listeners where to find us?
Okay, let's see if I can do this without messing up. Hey, listeners, oh no, I already messed up. Hey, subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. All links are at StarTrekPod.co. And if you love our content, please consider joining our Patreon for just $2 an episode. Patreon.com/StarTrekPod.
Right. And if you're watching us live tonight on YouTube, please participate in our live chat. If you have a comment or question you want us to address on the show, just type capital P, capital O, capital D, capital pod in all caps in the chat before your comment, and we'll take it out. And in a minute, we'll ask you a question. You'll know what it is. Just type capital H, capital F, capital HF in the chat, and we'll know what your thoughts are about the show. All right. Now, we can pretend to have a warp core meltdown, or we can dig into some, you know what it is. That's right. Some hot frakes.
Hot frakes.
Oh, I'll turn it to you first, man. Premiere season 2. We've been waiting for a long time.
Yes, some people say I'm coming in a little hot. I assume they're talking about my mic. Is this better? I dropped the gain a little bit. I got a new microphone, everyone. So now I'm a big boy podcaster. So let me know if this sounds correct or that. But I have to say, it's a great show. And something I was noticing about it was it's a good looking show.
Yes.
I mean, it is good looking. Disco, everything, all of them are great. But for some reason, this show looks particularly hot. I think they've just perfected the art. Oh, she made it. Thank God. Woo.
Nice. All right, I'm gonna go back to the science station now. Myrriah can sit in the big chair.
That's right. Anyway, I think it just looks so good. They have great colors and great shadow and light. It just looks so good. The cinematography is great. So yeah, and that's one of the first things I noticed about this episode. I was going man, they're just not pulling the stops. It looks beautiful. And the story is great. Space battles, choo choo. Everything was rocking for me.
Are we on hot frakes?
We're on hot frakes.
We are on hot frakes. Myrriah, you want to jump in and give us your hot frake?
I mean, my hot frake is it was great. It was I was excited to jump back into this world. I was really excited to watch Chapel and Omega have just a lot of kick-ass moments. I love a good hand-to-hand combat scene. Uhura's away mission outfit was to die for. And I'm excited about a little love brewing between Spock and Chapel and seeing where that goes. So I feel like those are my hot frakes.
You've been shipping Chapel and Spock for a while now.
I mean, I'm all for a little love triangle moment, but ultimately, I also hope it's just everyone grows from the experience and I don't know, a little crush is fun, right? Crushes are fun to watch. They're fun to have. It's cute to see.
I'll say I love this show. I knew I liked the show but I love it. Like, I absolutely love it. And I think the more I thought about this episode, the more I watched it kind of the second, third time, I liked it even more. And the reason why was very simple. One, if you guys have been watching or listening to the pod for any length of time, you know there are a couple things that I love. I love a good team up. I love space battles. I love ships fighting. So I got all of that in this one. But what I realized is that, even though I'm always disco. I'm always disco. This show has given me the thing that disco hasn't given me. And that is a true ensemble. And they were like, the ensemble was so strong is that they said, look, let me tell you how strong the ensemble is. We're going to take our two biggest stars
and not even have them in the premiere.
And not even have them in the premiere of the second season. That is a serious swag move to go. That's total how strong we are.
Let's move.
It's a total flex. It's a total flex. And you know what? It worked. It worked. And I was
like, from the get-go of this episode, I expected the B story of the episode to be Pike going on whatever this mission was, but we spent the whole time with our crew, and so instead the two kind of teams we followed were Chapel and Mbenga, and Spock with La'an. So it was like and Uhura. It was very interesting to kind of see all of them kind of come together. I also loved the introduction of Carol Kane as man. Engineer Pelia, who is, I think she's gonna be a fun character this season.
Yeah, no, like at first I was going like, is it gonna be okay that they have a character that speaks like a vampire the whole time?
100% it is.
But it totally worked.
Yeah, I Pelia is like, she's easily become one of my favorites. Like, I love her energy. I love what she brings. She feels authentically like she just fits into this TOS era in a way that I just could not imagine. Right? Like, just, oh my goodness. Just from the moment that she steps in and she's just like she's real cool with the way she catches them in a lie, right? In this plan. Like, it wasn't like, what are you doing? It was just like real smooth, like, hey, all right, I see what you're doing here. Let me help you out. Like, let me step up your game. Let me help you level up in this maneuver that you're doing. And I was I'm for it.
Yeah. I feel like she walked on that bridge and said, shenanigans? I like shenanigans, and is down for the shenanigans, which I'm excited to learn more about her. So she is a Lanthanite.
Yeah.
Lanthanite. Seemingly kind of similar to Guinan. It's a species that lives for like thousands of years. But I did a ton of digging, like a vampire. I mean, it makes sense if you've had to have different accents to like exist in a world for a long time. They all sort of blend together, very Matt Berry from What We Do in the Shadows.
Yeah, totally.
I did want to back up a little bit and get y'all's thoughts on, what did you think about Spock going rogue?
Like, at first, like, if I were to go in my Star Trek purist, I would go like, this is a little out of character, but they do it so well in the sense that they go like, hey, I'm having problems controlling my emotions, dude. I got some real problems right now. So like, even in the setup, they set up so that like this may not be the Spock that we know in the future, but like here, like, he's having some like troubles regulating his feelings, and so
I think my only pushback on that is that we do know that Spock will make sacrifices for friends, right? Like, I feel like the Spock we know makes a lot of sacrifices for Kirk.
Eventually, but like, my nudge back would be like, he always does it within like the rules, and or within a certain context. This seems to be very deliberate without knowing. he will, like, like in the menagerie, he breaks the rules completely for Pike.
Right.
So this could seed that, like, that kind of thing. But like, it's just
it was a
just
big jump. It wasn't like I'm
just
going to
go.
bend a rule for a friend.
But- So here's the way I've looked at this, because I've been struggling with this for a little while now, and that is, listen, we all love Leonard Nimoy and his depiction of Spock, right? Like that's the gold standard. But I think from the minute that Ethan Peck and that Spock showed up on Discovery, he has not been trying to embody Leonard Nimoy. That Spock has seemed different from day one. He struggled with things in a way that, with emotion and flair, that we've never really seen from the Nimoy Spock. So to me, when I look at this and I go, okay, I'm expecting there to be a shift down the road, but right now, him going rogue seems very in character and on brand for Ethan Peck Spock. So it didn't bother me. It's just this cognitive moment where I go, nope, that's where they've been going since day one with this Spock. Something has to happen for him to become that Spock. Because
10 years
that
down the
Spock
line
is different from this Spock.
It's 10 years down the line, right?
Like, 10 years. He gets a puppy, and that puppy gets lost, and it changes him forever. I mean,
he becomes a Vulcan guitarist.
Yeah, and I have a controversial statement to make.
Uh-oh.
It can't be more controversial than Chupi saying that it's all about the women. That's what does it to Spock.
I mean, I feel that in my bones, Spock. I get that. But I think my thing is with and it could just be I'm tired of like bros on the internet, and this is like seated within that hatred. Is if the story is good in what I am watching, I kind of don't care about canon.
I co-sign that.
Wow.
I will co-sign that.
Because my thing is like, if we are to grow and change and use like the ideals of Star Trek, and I think that is at the core of all of new Star Trek, ultimately, if the story is good, if I'm enjoying the show, if it feels like the values of the world that have been created, like to me, it's like beyond canon. It's like, what are the values of the universe that have been created? I kind of don't. It's fun to play with. It's fun to talk about. I understand it from that perspective, but it's like, ultimately, that's not my number one thing that I'm going to nitpick.
I'm going to say with one caveat, though. I co-sign that with one caveat. Not if you're reusing old characters, right?
But so why not? We reboot stuff all the time. There's no, that's everything.
That's not, and I'm not talking about a reboot. So let's take, like, you want to take a new version of Spock and do something different with it. I'm all for it. If you had done that with the last season of Picard, and so now you're taking Worf and Geordi and Data and Guinan and Beverly, and you're completely turning canon on their head, that might feel a little weird, especially with those. Not what I'm saying is those actors and those characters like that, right? Now, if you want to reboot Beverly and go in a different direction, okay, I'm with you, right? But if you're gonna take the original actor and then just go crazy with it, I feel like you get something like what we ended up with Picard, and it didn't feel good. Like, it just didn't feel that great.
Yeah. I don't know. That was my hottest of hot freaks to deliver today.
Wow. Because I think I'm scorched. I think the phaser is set to kill.
The phaser is set to kill. The other thing I actually, so going back to the episode beyond Myrriah's wild things to declare on the internet, is and I've said this before, I like Star Trek when it is making commentary on the world that we exist in currently, right? Like, to me, that is what makes great sci-fi. And so I thought it was a great opening episode to do probably, I think, a very common theme that happens a lot in like war-torn sci-fi, which is like the idea that war machine, there's profiteers, people profit from wars, right? And ultimately it just hurts everyday people. So I thought that was a really interesting theme for them to pick as like the opener for season 2, right? They're like, here's our morality play for this episode, which is there's a group of people who want to be making money off of war, so they are really dedicated to reigniting the Federation v Klingon war. So yeah, what did y'all think about that?
Well, I see no similarities to, like, Ukraine or anything.
Nothing. No similarities to the Iraq War. No similarities.
Not like I don't know what you're talking about, Myrriah. No, I mean it's like it's a tried and true, like, even old Star Trek, like, I don't know which rule of acquisition is. I'm a bad Ferengi, but like one of the rules is like war is good for business. Like it's a very common theme in Star Trek to admit that, like, that people are going to want war for things, for like selfish things. So yeah, and and you see it in life, like, you see it in, like, Halliburton charging like $200 for a load of laundry, like during the Iraq War. Like, how much money was that? That was a lot of money for Tide, and it probably wasn't even Tide. It was probably Kirkland.
Definitely. Oh, can it Kirkland? It did.
Yeah, like $200 a load.
That's wild.
Look, when I'm not podcasting, I'm in the education field. So of course I love what I consider the edutainment, right? If we can learn something while we're being entertained, while we're seeing theater, then to me that's the best of both worlds. So if we're going to have kind of social commentary and we can learn for it and we can see it, that's the gold standard, right? Like, part of what I love about our somewhat recent fascination and the mainstream popularity of comic books, right? Things like Marvel, is that Marvel has been talking about diversity and racism and persecution and oppression for decades. And now that's the hottest thing in the box office, right? So if we're talking about being able to bring light to what's really going on, and in this case, talking about war profiteering, well, yeah, let's show it and discuss it and hang that up as bad and show it so that now people are aware in maybe a way that is easily accessible to them. So I'm all for this.
Yeah. Comic books have been telling us to punch Nazis in the face since the beginning. So,
That's the beginning.
I will say what's really great to see, though, on the lore side of things, is lore, like, not data, like not lore, canon, is that like Klingons and humans could get along, and work together to start a war because it made money. So money brings people together.
Capitalism, like, once again, it comes down to binder.
That's right. Latinum Ferengis had it right.
Yes. It is. It's definitely, if we're talking about rules of acquisition, this is definitely like the peanut hamper addendum.
Oh!
Yeah, you're not getting me this week. You're not getting me this week.
Clyde pulled it in. Pulled it in.
Full spread. Clyde, full spread. Photon torpedoes, go. Quantum torpedoes.
Michael L has a good question. Essentially, in Disco Season 1, they miss the entirety of the Klingon War because Lorca takes them to the Mirrorverse. Do y'all remember how long they were away, or how long was the Klingon War? I'd have to look it up. Know.
Like, I remember that there's that time cut where Barnum's in jail, right? So, like, she starts the war, there's jail time, and then blah, 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 blah. I feel like they were in the Mirror universe for about 2 weeks. That I have.
I mean, but was it like Mirrorverse 2 weeks?
I'm looking it up. It's saying like it was like a year and a half.
Okay. Well, that's a lot of people to have died. 100 million people.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
that's wild.
No, that's 2 planets.
I mean, I guess that's true. It feels like so much. Speaking.
You go.
Oh, I was going to say, speaking of the war, though, I do appreciate that we're getting some insights into Mbenga and like some of the other characters' time during the war, right? So not a lot of folks on that ship did not um, participate, but it does seem like a few of them did. And I, for the life of me, couldn't find an answer. But do y'all know what the Hulk up syrup was that they took to go kick ass against a bunch of Klingons that seemingly didn't have any weapons?
Well, it comes from like World War II, where we gave a serum to this one soldier, and he like helped. No, it's total
Was it just a steroid injection? Like,
exactly. I assume there's nothing in canon that relates to like a steroid pop or a
yeah. I was
or
like, I kept Googling. I was like, super serum Star Trek, steroid serum Star. And I could not find anything.
so
Uh,
so
Okay, that
we'll
that
give
makes
that a
me happy
pass.
because I was seriously like, hey, did I miss something? Like
so
I watched it. Like I said, I've watched it multiple times, and I was questioning. I literally just to overshare a little bit. I was thinking to myself, maybe I'm a bad podcaster. Maybe I'm not fit to podcast because I can't remember where this serum came from. I must have missed it somewhere. And so I was like, I'm terrible. Like I was questioning myself. So the fact that you guys are also going, did we miss this? I'm going, okay. It's no, it's not just me.
it says it's a serum or DNA thing. Like she made the one in the first episode. I mean, I remember she was like reviving that guy. I'm gonna have to go back, but at first, I truly thought it was them becoming Klingons, like because it just did a close up of the eyes, and I was like, are they doing like American Werewolf in Paris, like they're gonna go under, like we've had folks go undercover as Romulans before, and I was just like, is this like a new? I was like fully expecting them to come for a pan out, and they were like in Klingon outfits, but nope, just super strength. um, yeah.
Yeah, it was a super strength serum.
So Babs, who plays Mbenga, apparently is really great at jujitsu. And so at the end of last season, they couldn't believe they hadn't given him any fight
Fight.
scenes.
Yeah, no.
And so Paul, I had to ask you, what did you think of Mbenga's fighting as someone who also does jujitsu?
Jujitsu is mostly on the ground, right? So like he did not go to the ground once. So like his jujitsu is undetermined as of this point. You
Well,
know,
there was like I felt like there was like a leg hold like slam over at one point, but
but you can see that he has trained. I was talking to my wife about it and how I go like, oh, this is a really long fight sequence. It's like really long, and and it's not done so well that you think of like, oh, this is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. It's like like you didn't have months to train for one hallway scene, right?
right.
So what I described is like it looks like uh pretty good stunt choreography fighting, and and you can see the way that the Doctor moves, that he has training. You can see how Nurse Chapel moves, that she tries really hard. And that's not a dig. That's not a jab. Like you only have so much time. And I can guarantee you that Nurse Chapel, she wasn't training 8 months to do martial arts, for her role as a nurse. They threw this episode at her, and she might have had what, a week maybe. But even then, like, why would they like? So I think it's totally fine. It services it without being. I mean, I do feel like if I had my druthers, because I am a little bit more canon based than you, Myrriah, if we could have like a double fist,
That would be fun. Yeah.
or a running flying kick, a Kirk flying kick. Maybe that's patented. Maybe
Mm.
it's trademark pending. I don't know, but that would have been nice. But or maybe like a sexy version, updated version of that.
I would be down for that. I would be down for that. On the flip side, I did really enjoy watching Uhura get lots of fun like space espionage linguistics moments in this episode, which I thought was like a really nice highlight. And I got a little like misty eyed at the dedication to
Oh my
Nichelle
god, me
Nichols at
too.
the end. I was like, oh, it's like
Hailing frequencies open forever. Ah.
I was like, oh, especially because, like, yeah, at the beginning of the episode, and she's like determined, like, no, our hailing frequencies have to remain open. I'm going to set up a second comms channel while you're shutting this down to do like updates or whatever. I just like really.
So this is my
enjoyed
station.
it.
Back off, man. Like
Yeah.
I
wanted to be like, yeah, you tell him, Uhura. You get him out of here.
again, like I said, I love this as an ensemble. Like I thought it really stood up. So whether it was Uhura, whether it was just the Mbanga and Chapel.
I thought La'an was also super fun in this episode.
Yeah.
Like, what a banger way to come back in for the season, just like chugging blood wine against a Klingon like it's an Indiana Jones movie and you're taking them down. I was into it.
So I've decided to just admit it and roll in. I'm really feeling La'an. So it's one of my favorites. I'm just gonna have to admit that and be honest about it. So every scene, I'm just like, yes, she's great.
Yeah.
So
her fake
So
gadgets.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you have Ortegas, and what does she do?
She's amazing. She fly she literally spills.
Oh, I love Ortegas. This isn't me. This is me. I'm asking, what's her job?
They're the pilot.
Helm. Yeah, she's on the helm. She's on the helm.
Jenna Mitchell, the girl on the other side of Ortegas. What does she do then?
She's a con. Yeah.
What does that mean?
Listen. Well, isn't it tactical and navigation? Isn't that the two?
Exactly. So she should be shooting, but it's Ortegas who winds up shooting the Federation ship. So I was just curious as to what she was doing aside from like faking a core breach.
I mean, who? I'm trying to think about. So if we think about, listen, there's always two people up front.
Yeah,
there's always been two people.
You've got Sulu and then Sulu and Random, and then Sulu and Chekhov. And Chekhov was Mr. Firing photon torpedoes kind of person.
You're absolutely correct. And so in the same, I guess.
Yeah, but Ortegas was the one who shot down as I understand it.
You're right.
So I'm just asking.
Do you really want the new kid firing off torpedoes?
Do you want the pilot to be like doing barrel rolls and locking on and firing
when
at the
it's
same
Ortegas?
time?
Absolutely.
I was gonna say the same thing, Myrriah. Like
that's why there's there's hashtag more Ortegas. Everyone wants more Ortegas.
All I can say is vamonos.
Yes. Here's the deal. If this was the Enterprise D, right? If this was TNG, in that spot, you quite easily would have Data and Wesley Crusher. 100%. Now I ask you, do you want Crusher touching anything other than really anything? I don't want him doing anything.
Let Data do it all. It never occurred to me all the time. I go, what's Wesley doing? I don't know. Is it like co-pilot kind of thing?
He's sitting there and asking dumbass questions is what he's doing. Captain, should we really be doing this? Sorry.
I did want to go back to let me see in my notes. Oh, I mean, I guess within this realm, it's like it's like one of those things where the main characters aren't gonna die. So when they jump out of the ship, you're like, they're gonna get them and everything's gonna be okay, right? But it was still like I was on the edge of my seat watching them jump out of this thing and waiting for them to get beamed on ship and then seeing Spock do too gentle of CPR. But I'm glad it worked. But how are y'all feeling watching that tension? And then I thought Ethan Peck did an incredible job of showing that hesitation, but knowledge that you had to do this thing, but potentially risk losing two of your shipmates and your friends.
For me, it's within the episode, right? He's really uncomfortable with taking the reins. Beginning with Pike. Pike goes, like you're in charge, Spock. You're like, I don't know. Uh, and then and then at the very end of the mission, he wasn't sanctioned. He has to choose to perhaps kill 2 of his crew members, right? So and he has a failing emotional block. So now he he feels all the feels. So I think it's well set up structurally to afford that thing. You could have Spock do that without it being weird. So I think it's great. The weird thing for me was when the 2 of them were talking to each other, looking like they were going to kiss, and I was going I don't know if this energy has been set up in any way, but it's really intense right now. And I know that if I were to talk to any of my female friends in that kind of leery eyed and that, I people would say they would either execute or they would go dude, Paul, you're being weird. It would be called out. And to put that on, I'm about to die. It's just I was thinking about this. I go oh, if you want a sense of intimacy, I guess they could have been holding each other, hugging each other. It goes oh, we've got out worse, because they're gonna need to hold each other anyway, because they're gonna go out in space and they're gonna be beamed out together. They need to be.
Oh, you're talking about M'Benga and Chapel. You thought there was a moment between them. Interesting.
Yeah. Oh wow.
I did not read that romantically at all. It felt like I'm about to die and I'm embraced by a friend. But
it wasn't the embrace. It was there's a point at the airlock where they're looking at each other and they're their faces are pretty close, and I stop it because it's the second time I was watching it with the wife, and I was going is it really awkward here? Are they about to kiss? Do you feel the energy? And she goes, yeah, it's not there.
I'll have to do. I'll pay more attention to that area for a rewatch. I didn't get to do a second watch today, so but I will try to see what you feel. But.
So let me chime in a couple of these points. So one, to Paul. I mean, and I see a lot of people going, "Wow, I'm for it," and I see it in the chat, but I didn't catch that. To me, it felt like
even
mentor mentee.
Yes. I do like Shabenga. That's a really good one. Stress free. That's a good one.
That's a good one. No, to me, it felt like mentor mentee. It felt like they had been through something. They had, she was able to say, he's been through the Klingon War. It's clear what they set up to me was. These 2 have been together for a long time, and it didn't feel like that type of chemistry. It felt more like I got your back, and we've been through war together, right? Like war buddies, and that's what I got. This really close bond, and it's kind of like the whole, we've gotten out of tougher scrapes before. No, we haven't. All right, man, if we're gonna die, we're gonna go out guns ablaze, and that's what it felt like to me. The chemistry between Spock and Chapel was hey man, y'all can't be looking at each other like this. There's people around. You need to keep that under wraps, right? Lest T'Pring find out.
Absolutely, I agree with that completely.
It's just if T'Pring find out, she gonna kill everybody. Don't go down that road.
It's cold blooded, but I have people who I've mentored, say in film or whatever, who are women, and I once again, if I'm that close to them face to face, I'm getting harassment. I'm just saying.
You're ending up in Mo Ryan's next book.
That's right. Or maybe they'll bring in an administrator, oh, there was this doctor, you have a sexual harassment letter from Nurse Chapel.
I mean, here's the
maybe it's just me. Or it's obviously not me. People see it too, but maybe it's
T'Pring's in trouble. T'Pring is
I feel like
T'Pring is in trouble.
T'Pring's not in trouble. I think T'Pring's going to get out of a situation she doesn't need to be in.
Well,
okay, fair.
You know how this ends, though, right?
Yes. The battle, yes.
So T'Pring gets so pissed off that she makes Spock try to kill his best friend.
Yeah, I mean, I see it. Justification. This is the building we need to get to
Exactly.
that amount of angry. Like,
Exactly.
I mean,
Because Vulcans, they feel stronger emotions than humans.
I was going to. I thought it was going back to the kind of ship that the war group had put together. Some folks were asking if there was call signs or anything. It seemed to just be a bunch of parts they slapped together. It wasn't necessarily like. That's why they said it was mostly a specific class of ship.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't think it had any particular call signs or anything. It was just a bunch of random pieces put together to make a Federation-esque looking ship.
And it wasn't supposed to live. It wasn't supposed to live very long.
Like, no, it just needed to get off planet and then destroyed.
Right. Like it had a 15-minute shelf life. Like that was about it.
Yeah. But I did like seeing. I thought Spock really held his own. Talking to the Klingon captain.
Mm-hmm.
I thought their little tete-a-tete was entertaining. And then I loved seeing Spock have to get drunk on blood wine.
So I'm with you 100%. So Myrriah, you asked, what do we think about Spock having to have this moment where people were going to die? And I loved it. And the reason why I loved it is because when you think about the Spock character, so if you line up all of the characters, right, in Star Trek history, and you say, we're going to form a basketball team, and I need the starting five, right? Or you want to talk about a Mount Rushmore, or any of the what
Here's
you want to do.
$15, build your crew, and everyone has a different value. Yeah.
Whatever it is, Spock is in that top tier as characters go. And so when you think about what we love about Star Trek characters, what we love about captains in particular, right? And what we love about first officers, if you're building your bridge and you go, I need a first officer, right? If you're bringing if you said, okay, you're captain on a bridge, you get to pull people from any Star Trek genre or era that you want, and Spock is not in your crew, shut up. Right. And so I'm looking at this and I'm going, he delivered exactly what we would expect a first officer who could be captain do. And flawlessly, you felt the energy of I may have to kill my colleagues, my crewmates, right? But I will do it because this is what captains do. You sit in the seat, you do this. I can't do it. That's not what you do. You make the hard decisions. That's what you do. And Spock did it incredibly, even when one of those people was the person he wants to be his baby mama. Like, I'm just saying, he did it anyway. So
I don't know if he goes that far,
it.
but he definitely wants to make out with that face.
It's a good face.
It is a good face. If you had to pick, though, in that like creation of your bridge, if you had to select between Spock and Riker, who are you picking? You can only pick
Spock.
one.
I'm going with Spock.
What? That's not the answer I thought I was going to get from you, Clyde. But
look, I like Riker. Riker's great, right? And if you need somebody to infiltrate, a kingdom where the weak link is a cute princess, Riker's your man all day, right? If you need someone,
but apparently Spock can do it too.
Yeah, but if you need James Bond, Riker's your dude, right? But man, Spock has just got he's just got a lot of tools in his belt. Like, he's been doing this for a long time. He's just if I have to choose, I'm going with Spock. Now, if you really push me, I'm gonna put Spock at science and have Riker in the chair if I had to, right? Because that's the other thing. I feel like Riker's got no other utility other than like first officer.
Like, I'm going to disagree with you, Clyde.
Shocked, I am.
Shocked. and I love Spock. I think Spock. I think one of the reasons why my wife loves me is because I remind her of Spock. But like, I think I love Spock because he's a great science officer. As far as leadership, I think he is okay. But Riker, and this is not something that I would. I'm this off the top of my dome right now. I'm not, but Riker, he is backup leadership, right? Here's Picard. Picard has a certain leadership style. It's not going to work all the time. Riker has a different style. You cover your leadership bases, and then you have your science officer. Like like Una doesn't have another role. Like it's a weird thing that in some ways that TOS Spock has to do double duty because he isn't human because he has to be science officer and first officer. But right now Una is the first officer, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's Pike. Historically that's what the roles are. But not historically, but but the roles are here we need this chain of command of leadership, and and at some point leadership is the only job that you'll have to do because science or you have Geordi in command only when things break down. But everyone else has in their job. The first two head positions are I gotta make sure that the ship comes home, and everything else has in case it's like president, vice president, right?
Right.
There is a president and vice president plus secretary of state. Those two don't share the same job.
So there's always this part of me that's like, how much of your nerddom do you really want to reveal?
All of it, Clyde. It better be all of it.
Okay, so I've done the role playing kind of RPG fan fiction type deals where you play characters, and I've actually held the position of executive officer, first officer, and there's more to it than just backup, right? Really what it's supposed to be, if you're thinking about what it is you're taking care of the crew. So you're the one doing crew assessments and you're setting duty rosters and stuff like that. You're doing a lot of the I don't want to say admin, but
I was like, you're doing HR. I was like, Clyde, is this just you telling us when you role play, you're still playing yourself?
I mean, yes, it is, right? That's who I am. Damn it.
Don't HR shame me, Myrriah.
Yeah,
I'm not. I just think it's funny.
To your point, though, to your point, if you're looking for someone to be that HR person, that chief of staff person, that's not Spock's role, right? So that's probably not a great role for him.
So you're walking back what you just said?
I mean, listen, no, listen. Kind of, but not really. I'm still going with Spock.
Spock is still number one. You're number
He's
one.
my number one. But I can understand your point of going, I need this leadership role,
sure.
And maybe he's not a great fit for it. That doesn't mean I'm not putting him in it, because I just need that dude on my bridge.
Yeah, no, it all comes down to chemistry, right? It comes down to Kira is Cisco's first officer. I don't think Kira does well in any other bridge.
Well, yeah, I think it's that balance. It's the captain and the number one have to almost be sort of very different leadership styles in order to complement
to cover all your bases. That's right.
Right.
Well, exactly. It's interesting though, because also in Discovery, right, your first officer has another job. They're typically your science officer, right? Burnham was a science officer.
For a while before she was moved up to number one, and then Saru eventually moved into captain, right? It's these different they all have their different backgrounds. I mean, Janeway was a science officer before she became a captain.
Isn't Burnham a
anthropologist? Yeah.
Xenoanthropologist,
yeah, she was a science officer prior to becoming captain. Okay. Speaking of scientific studies,
can I just say I've missed talking Trek with you guys, real Trek. This is listen, Picard was great. I really did enjoy season 3, but this, I'm really excited about Strange New Worlds. I'm up for our conversations for the next.
Yeah, it was I feel
fewer weeks than I want.
Yeah, I feel like they read our minds in a way too, because they're oh, first episode, we're gonna give Myrriah an alien planet. We're gonna give Clyde a bunch of space pew-pews. We're gonna give Paul
exactly
love triangles. No, love triangles to talk about. I was trying to think of what's been your thing. We're still figuring it out, Paul.
Yeah, I'm complex. I got a lot of flavors.
You got more than one thing is your thing. We respect it.
Yeah.
But a very scientific question I have for y'all is, how much blood wine can you consume? Do you think you could consume?
I'm gonna be honest, not that much.
Canon,
I'm lightweight.
like canon is that blood wine is twice as potent as whiskey.
Oh, so then I can have a half a glass.
There you go.
I might be down for. I could probably have a shot, and then I'm done for the night.
Yeah. I did like seeing hungover Spock essentially trying to get out of trouble with Commander or with Admiral April.
So, is it me or was April being a bit of a jerk? In this episode.
I mean, but he kind of had to be. They were being very secretive because that Gorn ship is approaching.
Yeah, but here goes hey, here is this we're your A team. Let's
but
face it.
They did steal the Enterprise.
Well, no, but eventually, his hand was forced. But in the beginning, Spock goes, "Hey, they're the threat to the Federation," and April goes, "Let her figure it out."
Well, I think because he saw that Gorn ship coming and was like, I can't have this ship gone.
Fair. But here's the thing that's interesting to me is that feels like this is pre, the internet the Enterprise is that badass flagship. If you think about it, this is when the Enterprise doesn't have a whole lot of street cred.
That's what I'm wondering if they're putting.
But
oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, it's got some, but by the time we get to TNG, the Enterprise, the name alone is
flagship.
It carries so much weight that you're oh, that's the Enterprise. This is even before Kirk. The Enterprise, you might as well called it the Ramada Inn. It's just a name of a ship.
Ramada Inn is a nice and affordable place to stay.
I'm not. It's reliable. It is. It's reliable. I'm just saying.
I do think, though, I'm wondering if the updates, because they're having the ship I'm wondering if they're putting in some better weapon systems with the knowledge that the Gorn are coming.
I mean, based on the last interaction they had with the Gorn, I would hope so.
Yeah.
Something.
I saw a lot of chatter today online about, and I need to do some digging because it could have been taken out of context, but Akiva Goldsman essentially talking about how the Gorn is just evil monsters. And a lot of people are like, that's boring Trek to just the Gorn should have, they are complex beings, right? Because they were essentially, if you take away the idea that they have any moral compass or something, then you're just getting the Star Trek version of Alien in space.
Sure.
And
fine film though. It was a fine
I was you're really not selling me as this being a bad thing. Someone who loves the movie Alien. But the
problem with that is what exactly?
Right. But I also understand the point of view is that typically you're using these different species in Star Trek as metaphors for things about humanity. Right. And so it's then that creates the argument, are there truly just evil, unredemptive people?
Yes.
You have one of them on your podcast.
Oh, thanks, guys.
I was going somewhere else and say one was president for a while.
Right. And so I think that is also interesting to me, is there could be that discussion. But yeah, I'm interested to see where they take the Gorn this season.
I think ultimately, if I were to prognosticate, there are how should I say it in this way? They say that 5% of the population are psychopaths, sociopaths, kind of things.
Did you do this math, Paul?
Just because you're a psychopath doesn't mean that you're violent. It's when you combine, psychopathic or lack of empathy plus a trait that is predatory, right? And so, the problem is systems with power, whether it be Fortune 500 companies, or or government, those have 10%, psychopaths, because they do very well, and they generally are drawn to control. So I imagine, you could play the Gorn much like a a type of person in power that has no empathy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how that manifests. You for all of it, I think lizard people in science fiction or fantasy have always been uh portrayed as alien than mammals, because oh, imagine something as smart as a mammal but has no compassion and no
Mm-hmm.
almost
They're
robotic in
cold
that way.
blooded.
Exactly where it comes from, right? And so with that, I can see that there may be a limit to how interesting that can be, as far as how that can be explored. But I think for a season, for a few episodes, I think that's totally legitimate. I think it totally works.
Well, I think the interesting thing that why I don't think it's completely boring is because it's so different than what we normally get. We normally get these three-dimensional bad guys, right? Or these bad guys that even in Discovery where you've got the what are they called? The not the Obsidian Order, but the I can't even think about it. But you
Cardassians?
have this. No, they were in Discovery. They were like the gangsters.
Oh, the Orion syndicate
Yes,
or whatever.
syndicate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So when you have even looking at those, you see, oh well, they didn't start out this way. It was because of this, and there's this backstory, right? And it almost compels you to see, oh, I can see how they got it this way. What's interesting to me about this is the Federation at some point is going to try and negotiate, right? They're going to try a diplomatic approach. And so what we're going to see is a diplomatic approach with a monster, right? And how the Federation has to do when you're trying to be a diplomat to a society that has no interest in that whatsoever. What is your recourse? How does that one set up your ideals? How do you confront what you believe about this Federation code that you have or that you're going to create? How does it impact on kind of the prime directives and things like that? That is what I'm curious about. And largely, we've been hearing about the Gorn for the last 30 years, but we've never really had a whole lot of interaction. So yeah, bring it.
I'll be interested to see how they play with the going back to against my word here, but the canon that is set up in lower decks of the Gorn wedding. Yeah, the Gorn wedding, because that's essentially the only other time we have seen Gorn in modern Trek, and it was fairly close in character design to what we saw in the original series. So I'll be interested to see how they play with that, and what do they just look like tiny Godzillas, which I'm down for. I think that could be really fun. Are they going to look like Jurassic Park velociraptors? Also fun. And we know those look good. They were made 30 years ago and they still look good. So it's possible.
My money is on velociraptors.
There's a Gorn in A Mirror Darkly in Enterprise, the second to last episode of Enterprise. And it's a little more like dinosaur-esque person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another way you could look at it is there isn't actually, even the Borg, there isn't actually another species that the Federation has met that would view the Federation as prey. It's a completely predatory system, right? To the point where they use you as hosts, kind of thing.
Right.
So there's nothing. They don't. Even the Borg would go oh, we want to add your biological and technological distinctive to blah 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 blah. There's some value in you, but the Gorn would see them only as
food,
prey. And I think not the way the Herodians would, but where the Herodians have respect for their prey. It's a more mammalian hunting philosophy. This is just a crocodile eating a deer.
They're like the polar bears of space.
Sure. Like if that's helpful.
I was like, polar bears are the only bears that will actively hunt people for sport.
Yeah, well, I've often been described as a panda, but now maybe we can upgrade.
Maybe it can be polar bear.
Polar bear.
Polar
bear.
Oh no!
That was terrible.
That's right. That's no peanut hampering.
Based on the preview I saw today on the Ready Room, we catch back up with Pike next episode. It looks like a really fun ep. I'm excited about it. What are you most looking forward to this season? I think for me, it's going to be the horror-y Gorn episodes because those were some of my favorite last season. And obviously the Lower Decks crossover.
Obviously.
Yes. Yes.
I'm like, like somewhere along the line, Spock is going to like make a pass at Chapel or vice versa. I don't know if it's this season or next season, but it's going to happen. And so, like, I'm looking forward to that. Like, basically, like, one of my favorite episodes in all of Star Trek is Pale Moonlight. In the Pale Moonlight, which is a Deep Space Nine episode where Sisko basically says, I set up the Romulans to join the war by lying to them. And so he solely is the cause of hundreds, maybe tens of millions of Romulans' death. Like, that's how cold-hearted Sisko is. And the whole episode is him talking straight to camera, saying like, yeah, here's a story. I'd do it again because I had to. Like, and it's horrific. But, it's horrific for the greater good. I really like episodes where people have to break or bend their morality in order to service the greater good. So I'm curious if they can do that in this season.
I think for me, there's a few things that I'm looking forward to, right? So one, I'm curious who will be our first kiss of the season. Just who will it be? So kind of largely, I'm wondering where that's going to happen. Also, it's season 2, and what I find fascinating about most season 2s of a show like this is we're going to get a lot more background and detail, like character-driven stories. And so I'm almost expecting or hoping that each character, especially this bridge crew, is going to get like an episode where they're the driving force. This first episode, we saw quite a bit of, or not quite a bit of, but we've got a little bit of Chapel and some M'Benga backstory. Like, I feel like we know more about them today than we did yesterday. So as we go around, so yes, I want to know some more about Mortegas. I want to know more about, Uhura. But I also think we're going to get a lot more about Una. I want more La'an, right? And I think La'an is really interesting because we haven't even scratched the surface of her genealogy yet. Right. And that is like the biggest thing that we don't ever talk about is, come on, she's directly related to the wrath of Khan. Like, you've got to pull that thread a little bit. Una's not even on the ship, so we got to figure out how she gets back on the ship. So to me, the character-driven nature of this ensemble, that is what is going to set this up for me to want to be here for 5-6 seasons. Like, honestly. And what they proved tonight, which really made me excited, was that if you lose Pike because Anson Mount wants to do it in front, it's still a great show. It is still a great show. So I'm really here for the long haul. That's what I'm looking for. I want to know more about the individual characters on the bridge. And not to mention, you got to show me Pelia. Like, I think she's going to be a tremendous amount of fun.
Yeah. I'm excited for Pelia.
What if they kill her off too? Like it'll be like they're gonna do engineer every season.
I mean, but it is like Oscar nominated Carol Kane.
Yes.
I understand. Like, with a vampire accent. I mean, I'm digging it. I'm digging it.
yeah, we shall see. I hope she sticks around in some capacity, but who knows? She's thousands of years old. She could get bored very quickly, because she did mention this episode that boredom is her greatest fear, and not immortality. So I thought that was interesting.
So, Myrriah, quick question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a favorite Carol Kane project?
Oh man, I'm like, do I go down the IMDb rabbit hole?
I mean, you could. I mean, I have, like, there are a couple that are gonna make me feel old. But
like Taxi is iconic. The Princess Bride, it might be the Princess Bride is like,
and she's in there for like 5 minutes.
I know, but she's iconic, and it's so good.
Yes, but if you recite any one of her lines, everyone in this world will know what you're talking about.
Exactly. So, I mean, that one's pretty.
I'm gonna go with Scrooge, because everybody hates that movie and I love it.
I would love if Carol Kane had the line somewhere in the series goes like, "Have fun storming the castle."
I mean,
that would be amazing. That'd be amazing.
Would cackle. Yeah, I'm excited. I think it's going to be a great season. This cast is great. More to come. I think that's all my thoughts for tonight. Did y'all have anything else?
No. I think we're in for a treat. A good Star Trek.
Last question.
Yeah.
Last question. All right. So typically we know that Star Trek is known for having admirals who are sus. Admirals who are annoying, right? Who they play like the big bad Sarge, the drill sergeant that you deal with, but you're like, oh man, this guy drives me nuts, right? And I know Vance is dreamy, but early on, Vance was very sus, and no one liked him. What's your read on April? Like, where are you at with April? What a weird name, but go ahead.
I have no issues with Admiral April right now. So far, he's been trustworthy. He definitely gives Admiral energy, but I don't think I'm getting Badmiral energy at this point.
Yeah, no, I think aside from being a little like, it's weird because normally I feel like I'd be arguing against this, but like, I was surprised that he was so anti mission, without even if someone said, "Oh, our intel says like this is a Federation ending mission," and he goes like, go away. That seems a little weird. Aside from that, I think he's been fine. Like all season 1, he's been consistent. There's nothing sketch about him. He seems to be really wanting good things for the Federation in a way that I can understand, as opposed to being a little callous, which I feel a lot of admirals are. Although I do miss myself Nechayev, Admiral Nechayev. She like the writers of TNG going like, oh, let's give Picard someone to just not like. Love it. What about you, Clyde? You think April sucks? You think he's?
I don't think he sucks. I don't necessarily think he's sus. It's just I think what's interesting to me is
you're waiting for a sus.
I'm feeling him out because normally, because we're so far in the past, like I said, the name Enterprise carries so much weight, is that every admiral that we deal with has to deal with the fact that this is the Enterprise, right? You can treat the Stargazer one way, but you got to treat the Enterprise a little bit different because the captain is almost always a rock star. The crew is the best of the best, and it's the one who saves the universe every other week. Because we're not there, he really is very dismissive about the Enterprise, like almost like you're my problem child. I wish you would go away.
Well, and that's the pilot though. He twisted Pike's arm to get back in the chair. Pike was going to retire.
Yeah, but here's the deal. He twisted Pike's arm almost like I like Pike, so I'm going to put you on this this ship, that should be fine. But it's not like he's going, I'm putting you on the best ship in the entire fleet. It just felt like, oh,
The Cerritos?
Yeah.
I mean, the Cerritos is amazing.
Love the
So
Cerritos.
that would have been funny if they was like, what, is that a California class that the Klingons built? That would have been a great little nod.
That would have been funny. But I think we're saving all of our Lower Decks references for one very particular episode.
All right.
Kim brings up a good point. The Enterprise is April's former ship, so he's probably more protective as well.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Good
Good
out.
Point.
Good point. I think that is it for us this evening. We've got 9 more glorious weeks of Strange New World to talk about. Very excited about it. You can subscribe, rate, and review on Apple and other places where you get your podcasts. Visit StarTrekPod.co to get links to all of those, as well as to the Patreon. You can also find their YouTube link if you'd like to join us live. It's a good time. Please do. Clyde, where can people find us on Twitter to get updates about our schedule?
At Star Trek Pod. Thank you, Karen, who runs our Twitter. Love you, Karen.
We appreciate you. Thank you so much to everyone. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next time. Live long and prosper. Bye-bye.
Bye.